The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with noise. Hundreds of alien voices filled the air as representatives from across the galaxy argued about the new law. The Orbital Mining Rights Act would change everything. It would take away the asteroid mining rights from human colonies and give them to older, more powerful alien species. Daeho Kim sat in the humans section, watching the debate with calm eyes. He was Earth's main ambassador to the Council. For 20 years he had sat in this same chair, fighting for human interests. Today felt different. Today felt final. Next to him, Subin Lee checked her tablet. She was his aide and had worked with him for 10 years. She knew his moods better than anyone. The quiet way he sat told her everything. This was not going to end well. The humans had their chance, said Speaker Vextar from his high platform. The tall, blue-skinned Andromedan looked down at the assembly with cold eyes. They are newcomers to our galaxy. They should be grateful for what they have been given. Other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. The Rigelians with their multiple arms waved them in approval. The insect-like Centaurians clicked their mandibles. The energy beings from Tau Ceti glowed brighter with satisfaction. Daeho stood up slowly. The hall grew quieter as beings noticed the human ambassador rising. He was not tall by human standards, but something about the way he moved made others pay attention. The human delegation requests to speak, he said in a clear voice. Speaker. Vextar looked annoyed. Ambassador Kim, the debate period has ended. We are moving to the vote. Then we withdraw our request, Daeho said simply. He gathered his papers and put them in his case. Subin did the same without being asked. Across the hall, other humans began to stand. Hyunwoo Park, the military attaché, closed his files. Ji Un Chang, the trade representative, powered down her computer. Where are you going? Asked Councillor Raithak from the Centaurian section. The vote is about to begin. Daeho stopped at the edge of his row. He looked back at the assembly, his face showing no anger or sadness. We know how the vote will go, he said quietly. Our presence is not required. Humans always did have thin skin, Speaker Vextar said with what passed for a smile among his people. Very well. The vote proceeds without Earth's input. The humans walked toward the exits. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet of the great hall. No one stopped them. No one called them back. Most of the aliens seemed relieved to see them go. At the main door, Daeho paused and looked back one last time. He caught the eye of Dr. Mulketh, a Rigelian scientist who had worked with human researchers for years. The alien raised one of his 4 hands in what might have been a goodbye. Daeho nodded once and walked out. The doors closed behind the human delegation with a soft sound. Inside the hall, Speaker Vextar called for the vote. All in favor of the Orbital Mining Rights Act? Lights appeared across the assembly as representatives voted. Green for yes, red for no. The display board showed the results. 847 votes in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention where the human vote would have been. The motion passes, Vextar announced. The asteroid belts in the Sol system outer regions will be redistributed to established mining guilds. There was applause from many sections. The Rigelian Commerce Guild representatives looked very pleased. They would get the richest asteroid fields. The Andromedan Empire would control the strategic ones near the space lanes. But in the back of the hall, a few aliens looked worried. Dr. Mulketh stared at the empty human section with growing concern. He remembered how many problems the humans had solved over the years, how many crises they had helped with, how often their clever solutions had saved council projects. Ambassador Televor of the Cetian Collective also felt uneasy. She had worked with human negotiators many times. They were good at finding compromise when other species could not agree. Without them, future debates might be much harder. Outside the council building, the human delegation walked to their transport, in complete silence. No one spoke. No one looked back. They moved like a group that had made a final decision. Subin activated her personal communicator as they walked. She sent a single word message to every human facility in council space. Confirmed. The message reached Admiral Tae-young Seo at the Kepler station within minutes. It reached Dr. Hae-young Cho at the Xenobiology Research Center on Proxima Base. It reached Captain Woo-jin Han aboard the Centaurian defense ship Thunder of Stars. Each human who received the message understood. They had been preparing for this day for months. Some had hoped it would never come, but they were ready. At the human embassy compound, staff members began the careful process of packing. Not quickly, not in panic, but with the methodical precision of people following a well-practiced plan. Personal items first, sensitive documents second. Everything else could stay. News of the vote spread quickly through the galaxy's information networks. Most aliens saw it as a minor adjustment. Humans controlled too much wealth for such new members of the galactic community. It was time to share. On human worlds, the reaction was different. People gathered around news screens in silence. Some cried, some showed anger, but most just nodded as if they had expected this. President Young Soo Choi addressed the human colonies that evening. His speech was short. Today, the Galactic Council made their position clear. He said, "We understand. We will respond appropriately." He did not say what that response would be. He did not need to. Every human in the galaxy already knew. In his private office, Dae-ho Kim sat alone, looking out at the alien city beyond his window. Tomorrow, he would begin the journey back to Earth. His job as ambassador was finished. He thought about the 20 years he had spent trying to build bridges between humans and aliens, the compromises he had made, the friendships he had formed, the hope he had carried that humans could find their place in the galactic community. That hope had died today in a hall full of aliens who saw humans as useful but not equal, who wanted human skills but not human voices, who were happy to take human help but unwilling to give human concerns real weight. Dae-ho opened his desk drawer and took out a sealed letter. He had written it months ago, hoping never to send it. Now he fed it into the secure transmitter. The letter was addressed to every human military commander, every colonial governor, every research director in human space. It contained 2 words: come home. Tomorrow, the galaxy would begin to learn what it meant to stand without humanity's support. Admiral Tae-young Seo was reviewing fleet positions when the message arrived. The secure channel blinked red on his command console aboard the human battleship New Seoul. He had been expecting this message for weeks, but seeing it still made his stomach tighten. Protocol 7. Authorization. Ambassador Kim, Dae-ho. Confirm receipt. Protocol 7. The Withdrawal Protocol. Tae-young had helped write it 5 years ago, hoping it would never be used. Now he stared at the screen and felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. He typed back a simple response. Confirmed. Implementation begins immediately. Around him, the bridge of the New Seoul continued its normal routine. Officers monitored sensors and communication arrays. The ship moved through space on a routine patrol with 3 Centaurian vessels. Everything looked normal. But Tae-young knew that normal had just ended. He activated his personal communicator and sent coded messages to every human ship captain in the Joint Fleet. The messages were brief and used words that would mean nothing to alien observers. Return to port for scheduled maintenance. Report to base for crew rotation. Proceed to designated coordinates for supply pickup. Within 6 hours, human ships across the galaxy began to move. Not quickly, not in formation, but with quiet purpose. They finished their current patrols and headed home. Captain Rathak of the Centaurian ship Thunder of Stars noticed first. his human tactical officer Wu Jin Han submitted a formal request to return to the human base station. "Personal leave?" Raythak asked, looking at the request with confusion. His insect eyes clicked as he read. "You just took leave 3 months ago." "Family emergency," Wu Jin said simply. His voice was calm and polite, the same as always. "I need to return to human space immediately." Raythak liked Wu Jin. The human had served on his ship for 2 years and was the best tactical officer he had ever worked with. Humans had a gift for seeing battle patterns that other species missed. "How long will you be gone?" Raythak asked. "I'm not sure," Wu Jin said. "I'm submitting my resignation, effective immediately." The words hit Raythak like a physical blow. "Resignation? Why? Did someone offer you a better position?" "No, sir," Wu Jin said. "It's just time to go home." Raythak wanted to argue, but something in the human's tone stopped him. Wu Jin had already made up his mind. The Centaurian captain signed the resignation papers with a heavy heart. "It's been an honor serving with you, sir," Wu Jin said as he saluted one final time. The same scene played out across council space. Human engineers finished their shifts and did not return the next day. Human scientists submitted final reports and declined to renew their research contracts. Human medics completed their current patients' treatments and politely refused new assignments. Dr. Hae-Young Cho was working in the xenobiology lab on Proxima Base when she received her message. She had been studying alien plant diseases for 3 years, trying to help Rigelian farmers whose crops were failing. Her research was almost complete. She looked at her half-finished report and made a decision. Working through the night, she completed her analysis and sent the findings to her Rigelian colleagues. Then she packed her personal belongings and submitted her resignation. "But the growing season is about to begin," protested Dr. Velmon, her Rigelian research partner. "The farmers need your antifungal treatment." "The treatment formula is in my final report," Hae-Young said. "Your biochemists should be able to produce it." "Should be able to?" Velmon's 4 arms waved in distress. "We don't understand human biochemistry methods. We need you to supervise the production." Hae-Young felt sorry for her colleague, but her orders were clear. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," she said gently. "Rigelians are very intelligent." On the space station Kepler-7, Chief Engineer Min-Soo Yoon was completing the final tests on a new reactor design. The fusion plant would power 3 Andromedan colonies and had taken 2 years to design. It was the most efficient power system ever built. When his resignation message came through, Min-Soo uploaded all his technical data to the station's computers. Then he began the careful process of shutting down his experiments and packing his equipment. Station Commander Zaris found him in the engineering bay. "Yoon, what are you doing? The reactor goes online next week." "The technical specifications are complete," Min-Soo said, without looking up from his packing. "Your engineers can handle the startup sequence." "Our engineers?" Zaris's blue skin darkened with confusion. "You designed this system. Only you understand how it works." "The manuals are very detailed," Min-Soo said. "I'm sure your people will manage." But privately, Min-Soo knew the truth. Andromedan engineers were good at following instructions, but they didn't really understand human fusion technology. They had never needed to. Humans had always been there to handle the complicated parts. The pattern repeated everywhere humans worked. They finished their current tasks, handed over their responsibilities, and quietly left. No arguments, no dramatic speeches, no demands for better treatment. They just went home. Trade Coordinator Yulvex of the Rigelian Commerce Guild first noticed the pattern 3 days later. Human cargo ships had stopped arriving at the major trade hubs. The steady flow of human-made goods had simply ended. "Temporary tantrum," Yulvex told his assistants. "They'll be back when they need our markets." But the empty docking bays told. A different story. The fusion cores that powered alien ships came from human factories. The medical scanners in alien hospitals were built with human technology. The communication arrays that linked the galaxy used human-designed quantum transmitters. All of it had stopped coming. On human colony worlds, emergency meetings were taking place. Governor Soo-Young Kim of New Busan Colony activated the self-sufficiency, protocols that had been prepared years earlier. Food production increased. Manufacturing plants switched to making goods that had previously been imported from alien worlds. "Are we really cutting all ties?" asked Colonial Administrator Jin-Woo Park. "Not cutting," Soo-Young said carefully. "Redirecting. We'll trade with species that treat us as equals. The Council made it clear we're not welcome as partners." The exodus continued. Human freighter captains completed their deliveries and headed home. Human diplomats finished their negotiations and packed their offices. Human teachers ended their exchange programs and said goodbye to alien students. And throughout it all, not one human complained or explained why they were leaving. They had learned that their voices didn't matter to the Council, so they stopped speaking and started acting. Admiral Tae-young watched from his bridge as the last human ships left the joint patrol area. Behind them, alien vessels struggled to maintain formations that had been designed around human tactical support. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving multiple requests from alien ships asking for assistance with their navigation systems." Tae-young considered for a moment. The human-designed navigation computers on those ships were probably giving them trouble. Without human technicians to maintain them, the systems would start failing within weeks. "Send them our standard technical manuals," he said finally. "Wish them good luck." As the new Soul jumped to hyperspace, leaving the alien fleet behind, Tae-young felt both sadness and relief. Sadness for the friendships being left behind. Relief that the pretending was finally over. The galaxy was about to learn what it had really lost when it decided human voices didn't matter. 3 months had passed since the vote, and the silence from human space was becoming impossible to ignore. Speaker Vex Tar stood in his private office, staring at the stack of unanswered messages on his desk. Every attempt to contact human leadership had been met with nothing, not rejection, not angry responses, just silence. "Sir," his aide entered with yet another report. "The Rigelian Commerce Guild is requesting council intervention. Human trade ships have not appeared at any scheduled ports." Vextar waved a dismissive hand. "They'll return when they realize they need our markets more than we need their goods." But even as he said it, Vextar felt a growing unease. He had expected angry messages from Earth, demands for apologies, threats of economic warfare. Instead, humans had simply vanished from galactic affairs as if they had never existed. The replacement for Ambassador Dae-ho had never arrived. The human embassy compound sat empty, its windows dark. Human colony governors had stopped attending council subcommittee meetings. Even the human students at the Galactic University had quietly transferred back to Earth institutions. Trade Coordinator Yul Vex was the first to understand how serious the situation had become. His forearms moved nervously as he reviewed shipping. Manifests in his office on Rigel Prime. "Show me the human cargo statistics again," he told his assistant. The holographic display filled with data. For the past 50 years, human ships had carried 30% of all interstellar trade. They didn't just ship human goods. They transported cargo between alien worlds because their ships were faster and more efficient than anyone else's. Now, the shipping lanes were empty. Alien merchants were scrambling to find transport for their goods. Delivery times had doubled. Shipping costs had tripled. "Have we contacted human shipping companies directly?" Yulvex asked. "Yes, sir. The companies exist, but they're not accepting contracts outside human space. They say they're focusing on internal colonial trade." Yulvex felt his stomach sinking. "What about the fusion core shipments, the medical equipment?" His assistant's face grew pale. "Nothing, sir. Human manufacturers are only selling to human. colonies now. On the medical station orbiting Centauri Prime, Dr. Kexloth was facing a crisis. The surgical nanobots that had revolutionized alien medicine were running low. These tiny machines could repair tissue damage at the cellular level, making surgery safer and recovery faster. Every medical facility in Council space used them. They were manufactured exclusively by human biotechnology companies using techniques no other species had mastered. "How long do our current supplies last?" Dr. Kexloth asked his inventory manager. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we ration them carefully. "And replacement orders?" "Rejected. The human companies say they're not accepting new customers at this time." Dr. Kexloth had worked with human medical researchers for decades. He knew Dr. Myung-hee Song personally. She had helped design the current nanobot systems. Surely she would help if he contacted her directly. His message was polite and professional. "Dear Myung-hee, we're experiencing supply shortages of medical nanobots. Could you arrange an emergency shipment? Many lives depend on your help." The response came back within hours. "Dear Kexloth, I hope you're well. Unfortunately, our production capacity is fully committed to serving human medical facilities. I'm sure Council Space has many talented researchers who can develop alternative treatments. Best wishes, Myung-hee." The tone was friendly, but the message was clear. No help was coming. Similar problems were emerging across the galaxy. The early warning sensor network that protected shipping lanes from pirate attacks began failing. The sensors used human-designed adaptive algorithms that could learn and improve over themselves. Without human technicians to maintain them, the system slowly degraded. Defense Coordinator Zephyrian Coltex watched helplessly as red warnings appeared on his tactical displays. Sensor stations in the Vega sector had gone offline. The backup systems couldn't compensate. "Can our technicians repair the sensors?" he asked his engineering staff. Chief Engineer Morcalis shook his head. "The human algorithms are too complex. We can replace broken hardware, but the software is beyond our understanding. We always relied on human specialists for that." "Where are those specialists now?" "Gone, sir. All of them. They've returned to human space. Pirates were already taking advantage of the sensor gaps. Alien freighters that had once traveled safely through protected space lanes now risked attack. Insurance rates skyrocketed. Trade slowed even further. The Andromedan Empire was facing its own crisis. 3 major fusion reactors had suffered failures in the past month. These weren't old reactors. They were new installations designed by human engineers like Min-Soo Yoon. The reactor on Kulo Station was the worst case. A solar flare had damaged the containment field, and the backup systems weren't responding properly. Without the reactor, the station's 50,000 inhabitants would lose life support within days. "Contact the human engineer who designed this system," ordered Station Commander Zaris. "We tried, sir. Min-Soo Yoon's company says he's not available for outside consultation. Offer them more money." "We did, sir. They're not interested in money. They say their engineers are busy with internal projects." Zaris stared at the reactor readings with growing panic. The containment field was weakening. His own engineers were trying everything they could think of, but they didn't understand the human technology well enough to fix it. In desperation, Zaris sent a personal message to Min-Soo. "Please help us. People will die if this reactor fails." The response was swift and professional. "I'm sorry to hear about your difficulties. I've attached the complete technical manuals for your reactor system. Your engineers are capable people. I'm sure they'll find a solution. Regards, Min-Soo Yoon." The manuals were indeed complete, but they might as well have been written in an alien language. Human engineering principles were so different from Andromedan methods that the instructions made little sense. On Earth, President Young-Soo Choi received daily reports about the growing chaos in Council space. His advisors urged him to take advantage of the situation. "We could demand major concessions," suggested Trade Minister Bo-Ram Kim. "They need us more than we realized." "No," Young-Soo said firmly. "We're not going back to them. They made it clear we weren't welcome as equals. so we'll build our own future. The human colonies were adapting quickly to their new isolation. Manufacturing plants worked around the clock to replace goods that had previously been imported. Human scientists focused their research on solving human problems rather than alien ones. Ships like Admiral Jin Ho Kwan's patrol fleet maintained a loose blockade around human space. Not an aggressive blockade. They simply turned away alien vessels that tried to enter human territory. "We bear no ill will toward your people," Jin Ho would tell confused alien captains. "But we no longer recognize council authority over human affairs. Please respect our boundaries." Most aliens complied, though some tried to argue. They were met with polite but firm rejection. Human space was closed. Back on the Galactic Council station, Speaker Vextar finally admitted to himself that the situation was serious. The economic reports were terrible. Medical facilities were rationing supplies. Defense networks were failing. Trade routes were collapsing. "Maybe we should reconsider the mining rights vote," suggested Councillor Raythak during a private meeting. "Absolutely not," Vextar replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "We cannot appear weak. Humans are just being emotional. They'll calm down and return to normal." But deep inside, Vextar was beginning to understand a terrible truth. The galaxy hadn't just been using human resources. It had become dependent on them. Humans hadn't just been helpful partners. They had been the foundation that held galactic civilization together. And now that foundation was gone, removed not through war or conquest, but through simple, quiet withdrawal. The silence from human space continued, deeper and more ominous with each passing day. 6 months after the silent departure, the first real disaster struck the Rigel system. Station Commander Zaris watched in horror as the main fusion reactor on Kalos Station finally failed completely. The containment field collapsed, and emergency systems that should have activated automatically simply didn't respond. 50,000 beings lived on Kalos Station. Without the reactor, they had perhaps 72 hours of backup power before life support systems began shutting down. "Status report," Zaris demanded from his engineering team. Chief Engineer Morcalis looked exhausted. His team had been working for weeks trying to understand the human-designed reactor systems. "Sir, we've tried everything. The backup reactor is also showing signs of failure. The control systems use human adaptive algorithms that we can't access." "What about the manuals that human engineers sent us?" "We've studied them extensively, sir, but the technology principles are too different from our own methods. It's like trying to understand music by reading poetry." Zaris felt panic rising in his throat. As a young officer, he had fought in 3 wars and faced death many times. But this was different. This was the slow, creeping knowledge that he was helpless to save his people. "Send another message to the human engineer," he ordered. "Offer him anything he wants." "We've tried 12 times, sir. The responses are always polite but firm. Human engineers are not accepting outside contracts. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Vega Early Warning Network had completely collapsed, leaving 3 star systems vulnerable to pirate attacks. The first merchant vessel was raided just 2 days after the sensors went dark. Captain Vel Kara of the Tau Ceti Defense Force received the distress call too late. By the time her ships arrived, the freighter Prosperity was a drifting wreck. The pirates had stolen its cargo and escaped into hyperspace. "How did they get through our defenses so easily?" Velkara asked her tactical officer. "The sensor grid is operating at 30% efficiency, Captain. There are gaps everywhere. Pirates are sharing information about which routes are unmonitored." Velkara had commanded this sector for 8 years. During that time, piracy had been almost non-existent thanks to the human-designed early warning system. Ships traveled safely because the sensors could detect threats hours before they arrived. Now her sector was becoming as dangerous as the frontier regions. "Can we repair the sensor network?" "We don't have the technical knowledge, Captain. The human algorithms that ran the system were self-modifying. They learned and adapted on their own. Without understanding the base code, we can't even maintain what's left. The medical crisis was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Dr. Kex Loth on Centauri Prime was now rationing medical nanobots so severely that only the most critical surgeries could be performed. Patients who would have had routine procedures 6 months ago were now left to heal naturally. "How many nanobots do we have left?" Dr. Kexloth asked his supply coordinator. "Enough for perhaps 20 more surgeries, Doctor. After that..." The coordinator shrugged helplessly. "And our research into alternatives? Dr. Vilthon's team has made some progress, but they estimate it will take at least 3 years to develop a replacement technology. And that's assuming they can solve the cellular integration problem." Dr. Kexloth knew the truth that his team was too polite to say. They might never solve it. Human biotechnology was decades ahead of anything other species had developed. The nanobots weren't just tools. They were tiny miracles of engineering that other species couldn't replicate. On the trading station Deep Space 7, Commerce Director Yul Vex was watching his life's work crumble. The station had been the busiest trade hub in the Outer Rim, handling cargo transfers between dozens of species. Now the vast docking bays stood mostly empty. "Give me the weekly shipping statistics," Yul Vex said to his aide. The numbers were devastating. Trade volume was down 70% from pre-crisis levels. Ships sat in dock for weeks waiting for cargo that never came. Many alien shipping companies were going bankrupt. "Sir, the Centaurian Freight Guild is requesting emergency rate adjustments. They say they can't survive with current shipping volumes." "Approved," Yul Vex said wearily. "Approve whatever they need. If we lose the freight lines, we lose everything." But Yul Vex knew the real problem wasn't rates. It was capacity. Human ships hadn't just carried human goods. They had formed the backbone of interstellar transportation. Their ships were faster, more efficient, and more reliable than anyone else's. Without them, the galactic economy was slowly choking to death. The crisis reached its peak when 3 more fusion reactors failed in the same week. The reactor on mining platform Alpha 7 exploded, killing 200 workers. The power plant serving the Andromedan colony New Xerxes went into emergency shutdown, leaving 2 million colonists without electricity. But it was the failure of the orbital defense platform protecting Rigel Prime that finally broke Speaker Vextar's resolve. "How long until the defense platform is back online?" Vextar asked Defense Coordinator Coltex during an emergency session. "Unknown, sir. The platform uses human-designed fusion cores and targeting systems. Without those systems, the platform is just an expensive piece of scrap metal. Can we replace the human technology with our own? Our engineers estimate it would take 18 months to redesign the entire platform, assuming we can figure out how to match the power output and targeting precision of the human systems." Vextar felt the weight of leadership crushing down on him. Rigel Prime was the capital world of the Rigelian Commerce Guild and home to 12 billion beings. The orbital defense platform was the only thing protecting them from the Andromedan fleet, which had been making increasingly aggressive moves in recent weeks. "What about hiring human engineers as independent contractors?" "We've tried, sir. Every approach has been politely rejected. Human companies are not accepting any work outside human space." The final blow came when Chancellor Marathis of the Andromedan Empire sent a formal message to the Council. The Empire was withdrawing from 3 major trade agreements because they could no longer maintain the infrastructure necessary to honor their commitments. "Without human technological support," the message read, "the Empire must focus its resources on maintaining essential systems. We cannot continue non-essential cooperative programs." That same day, the Tau Ceti Collective announced that they were suspending their membership in the Council's Mutual Defense Pact. Their defense networks had degraded so badly that they could barely protect their own worlds, let alone help defend others. One by one, the institutions that held galactic civilization together were crumbling. In human space, the withdrawal was proceeding smoothly. Captain Seung-ho Bae of the patrol ship Incheon intercepted a group of pirates who had been terrorizing the shipping lanes near the old council border. The pirates had grown bold, thinking that all civilized space was now as poorly defended as the council regions. They learned their mistake quickly when human ships appeared on their sensors. "This is Captain Bae of the Human Defense Force," came the transmission. "You are in violation of territorial space. Surrender immediately or face consequences." The pirate leader laughed. "Human ship, you are far from your council friends. We have you outnumbered 5-1. "Final warning," Bae replied calmly. The pirates opened fire. It was over in less than 2 minutes. Human military technology, no longer shared with alien allies, was far more advanced than the pirates had realized. The Incheon disabled all 5 pirate ships without taking a single hit. "Rescue pods deployed," Bae reported to his crew as they watched the pirates abandon their destroyed vessels. "Board them and check for survivors, then call in a prison transport." The contrast was striking. In council space, pirates operated with increasing boldness as defense networks failed. In human space, they were quickly captured or destroyed by superior technology and training. Back on Earth, President Young-soo received his daily briefings about the deteriorating situation in council space. His advisors were divided about what to do. "The council is clearly suffering," said Defense Minister Tae Hyun-yu. "Perhaps we should offer limited assistance in exchange for major concessions." "No," Young-soo said firmly. "They need to understand the full cost of their decision. If we help them now, they'll assume they can treat us badly and still get our support when convenient." "But, sir, people are dying because of failed medical systems and reactor failures." Young-soo was quiet for a long moment. "People were already dying because of the systems the council created. War, poverty, exploitation. The only difference is that now the comfortable species are feeling the effects too." He looked out his office window at the bustling city below. Human civilization was thriving without the council. New technologies were being developed. New trade partnerships were forming with the few alien species that had always treated humanity as equals. "The galaxy will survive," Young-soo said, "but it will be a different galaxy. One where every species has to contribute equally instead of relying on others to solve their problems." The silence from human space continued, deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. 1 year after the departure, Speaker Vextar stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great hall that had once held representatives from over 300 species now had barely half that number. Empty sections stretched across the chamber like missing teeth in a broken smile. The Cetian Collective had withdrawn from the council entirely. The Tau Ceti systems had declared independence and were trying to rebuild their civilization from scratch. The Outer Rim colonies were reverting to primitive technologies just to keep their life support systems running. "We must address the current crisis," Vextar announced to the reduced assembly. His proud bearing had cracked over the past months. The blue skin of his face showed stress patterns that his species usually kept hidden. "The human situation has gone on long enough," he continued. "It is time to reconsider our position." Murmurs ran through the hall. Some representatives looked relieved. Others appeared angry at the suggestion of backing down. But most just looked tired. Chancellor Morathis of the Andromedan Empire rose to speak. His once gleaming ceremonial armor was dulled and dented from the riots on his home world. 3 of his major colonies had declared independence when the Empire could no longer maintain their infrastructure. "The Andromedan Empire supports opening negotiations with humanity," Morathis said. "We are prepared to offer significant concessions regarding the asteroid mining rights." It was a stunning admission. 6 months ago, Morathis had been one of the strongest voices calling for human expulsion from the galaxy's most profitable mining areas. Defense Coordinator Cole Tex provided the military briefing that everyone had been dreading. "Piracy has increased by 400% in sectors where the sensor networks have failed. We've lost contact with 12 border systems. The Rigelian Commerce Guild estimates they've lost 30% of their shipping capacity to raids. Paused, letting the numbers sink in. Without the early warning systems, we're essentially blind. Our patrol ships are spread too thin to cover the gaps. Dr. Velmon of the Rigelian Science Academy delivered the medical report. We've had over 3,000 preventable deaths in the past 6 months due to medical equipment failures. Our attempts to reverse engineer human nanotechnology have been unsuccessful. The numbers kept coming, each one more devastating than the last. Economic output down 60%, trade routes disrupted, research programs abandoned, colonial, governments collapsing. I propose that we draft a formal apology to Earth, Vextar said finally. We offer to reverse the Orbital Mining Rights Act completely. We return all disputed territories to human control. In exchange, we ask for normalized relations. The vote was surprisingly close, 312 in favor, 287 against. Many species were still too proud to admit they had made a mistake. The message was crafted carefully by the Council's best diplomats. It acknowledged that the mining rights vote had been hasty and offered to reconsider the decision. It spoke of mutual benefit and renewed cooperation. President Young-Soo Choi received the message in his office on Earth. He read it twice, then set it aside without comment. His aide, Secretary General Yoon-ji Yang, waited for instructions. File it with the other diplomatic correspondence, Young-Soo said simply. Should I draft a response, sir? No response necessary. The silence from Earth was more devastating than any angry reply could have been. The Council's carefully worded apology had been ignored as completely as a piece of junk mail. Meanwhile, the crisis in Council space continued to deepen. Commander Velkara watched her sector's defenses crumble as more sensor stations went offline. The pirates had grown bolder, attacking larger ships in groups. Some were even raiding orbital installations. Captain, we're receiving a distress call from mining station Kepler 9, her communications officer reported. They're under attack by a pirate fleet. How many ships? Sensors show 12 vessels, Captain. Armed freighters mostly, but they outgun the station's defenses. Velkara felt helpless rage building in her chest. 2 years ago, the pirate ships would never have gotten within a light hour of Kepler 9 without the sensor network detecting them. Her patrol ships would have intercepted the raiders long before they reached their target. Now she was learning about attacks after they had already begun. Set course for Kepler 9, maximum speed, she ordered. Send word to all patrol ships in the sector. We need every available vessel. But Velkara knew they would arrive too late. The mining station's defenses couldn't hold out long enough. By the time her ships reached the system, Kepler 9 would be a smoking ruin. The pattern was repeating across the galaxy. Infrastructure that had taken decades to build was falling apart in months. Systems that had seemed permanent and reliable were proving to be fragile networks held together by human expertise. On Rigel Prime, trade coordinator Yul Vex was facing the collapse of the galactic economy. The great trading station that had been the hub of interstellar commerce was now operating at 20% capacity. Sir, the Centaurian Freight Guild has declared bankruptcy, his aide reported. They're selling their remaining ships to cover debts. What about the Andromedan shipping lines? Suspended operations in the Outer Rim. They say it's too dangerous without sensor coverage. Yulvex stared at the empty docking bays visible through his office window. Ships that should have been loading and unloading cargo sat abandoned. The complex dance of interstellar trade had become a funeral march. Sir, there's something else, his aide said hesitantly. We're receiving reports of human ships operating. In some sectors. Human ships? Are they resuming normal operations? No, sir. They appear to be independent operations, trading only with each other and a few select non-council species. The news hit Yulvex like a physical blow. Humans weren't suffering without council trade. They were thriving. Their ships moved freely through space that was too dangerous for council vessels. They traded with species that had maintained good relations with humanity before the crisis. The galaxy wasn't just losing human technology and expertise, it was watching humans build a new, separate civilization that didn't need the Council at all. Dr. Kex Loth on Centauri Prime was watching patients die from conditions that would have been easily treatable 6 months earlier. The medical nanobots were completely gone now. His surgical teams were using techniques that had been abandoned decades ago. "Doctor, the burn victim in room 7 isn't responding to conventional treatment," a nurse reported. "With nanobots, we could heal the tissue damage completely. Without them, we do what doctors did before nanobots existed," Kex Loth said grimly. "We try our best and hope it's enough." But privately, Kex Loth knew that their best wasn't nearly good enough. Human medical technology hadn't just been helpful, it had become essential. Other species had stopped developing their own medical techniques because human methods were so much better. Now they were paying the price for that dependence. Reports from the border regions painted an even darker picture. Several human colonies that had been cut off from Earth during the initial withdrawal were not only surviving but expanding. They had formed alliances with local species that the Council had always ignored. Admiral Jinho Kwan's patrol fleets continued to turn away Council ships that approached human space, but they welcomed vessels from the dozen or so species that had maintained respectful relations with humanity. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kwan of the Human Defense Force," came a typical transmission. "State your business in human territory." "This is Captain Thylos of the independent trader Star Wanderer," came the reply. "We carry grain from the Kepler colonies in exchange for medical supplies." "You are cleared for approach, Captain Thylos. Welcome to New Sol Station." The contrast was stark. Council species were turned away at the border. Independent traders, who had treated humans fairly, were welcomed with open arms. Chancellor Marathis finally swallowed his pride completely and sent a personal message to President Young-Soo. It was a formal apology, admitting that the Andromedan Empire had made serious errors in judgment. It offered major territorial concessions and asked for a return to previous cooperation agreements. The message was read, filed, and ignored, just like all the others. The silence from human space had become a deafening roar that said more than any words could express. Humanity had listened to the Council's verdict and accepted it completely. If the Council believed humans were unwelcome partners, then humans would find other partners. If the Council thought human contributions were worthless, then humans would contribute to someone else's future. The galaxy was learning that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt simply by asking. 2 years after the vote that changed everything, Speaker Vex Tar stood before the most humiliating moment of his long career. The Galactic Council emergency session was being held in a half-empty chamber. Whole sections sat vacant where representatives from collapsed governments should have been sitting. The once mighty Rigelian Commerce Guild had dissolved 6 months earlier. The Andromedan Empire existed in name only, controlling just 3 systems instead of the 47 it had ruled before the crisis. The Centaurian Federation had split into 12 separate nations, each too weak to maintain space travel. "Fellow beings," Vex Tar began, his voice carrying none of its former authority. "We gather today to face a truth that many of us have been unwilling to accept." The assembled representatives looked tired and defeated. These were the survivors of the collapse, the species that had somehow managed to maintain their governments through 2 years of cascading failures. "The human withdrawal has cost us more than we imagined possible," Vex Tar continued. "We must now decide whether to make formal overtures for their return, despite the personal cost to our pride." Dr. Mulketh of the Rigelian Science Division rose to speak. His forearms trembled with age and stress as he addressed the assembly. "In the past month alone, we have lost contact with 17 research stations. Our deep space exploration program has been suspended indefinitely. Without human technological support, we are becoming a civilization in retreat. Commander Velkara, now representing the fragmented remains of the Tau Ceti Defense Force, delivered the military report. Piracy has become so widespread that merchant vessels now travel in armed convoys. The Outer Rim territories are essentially lawless. We estimate that 70% of our former territory is no longer under any governmental control. The economic numbers were even worse. Interstellar trade had dropped to levels not seen since before first contact between species. Unemployment in the developed systems had reached 60%. Technological development had stopped entirely as species struggled just to maintain basic infrastructure. What about the independent human enclaves? Asked Counselor Rathika from the Vegan systems. Are they willing to trade with us? The human colonies that were cut off during the initial withdrawal have formed their own confederacy, Velkara reported. They trade actively with over 20 independent species, but they refuse all contact with council members. They consider us contaminated by association. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Even humans who had never been part of Earth's government wanted nothing to do with the council. I have a report from our intelligence services, Chancellor Morathis said quietly. The once proud Andromedan leader looked broken, his ceremonial armor replaced by simple robes. Human civilization is not just surviving without us. It is thriving. He activated a holographic display showing the sectors of space now under human control. The territory had grown by 30% since the withdrawal began. New colonies were being established. Trade networks were expanding. They have formed alliances with 47 non-council species, Morathis continued. Their combined economy is now larger than what remains of council space. Their technology continues to advance while ours stagnates. How is that possible? Demanded what remained of the Rigelian delegation. They were dependent on our resources, our markets. Apparently not as dependent as we believed, Morathis said bitterly. Our economists estimate that human space will be completely self-sufficient within another year. After that, they will have no economic reason to ever deal with us again. The final blow came from Dr. Velmon, delivering the medical report. We have confirmed reports of new human medical technologies that surpass anything we knew they possessed. Life expectancy in human space has increased by 15%. Disease rates have dropped to near zero. Meanwhile, he continued, our own medical systems continue to degrade. We're using treatments that are 50 years out of date. Our researchers estimate it will take decades to catch up to where we were 2 years ago, let alone match current human capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of their failure became clear. They hadn't just lost valuable partners. They had cut themselves off from the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Speaker Vextar made the decision that would define the rest of his life. I propose that we send a full delegation to Earth, not just a message, but our highest-ranking officials. We offer complete capitulation on all disputed issues and ask for their terms for renewed relations. The vote was unanimous. Even the most prideful representatives understood that their civilizations were dying. But the delegation never made it to Earth. Admiral Jinho Quan's patrol fleets intercepted them at the border of human space. Council vessels, you are not authorized to enter human territory, came the transmission. Please return to Council space immediately. This is Speaker Vextar of the Galactic Council, came the desperate reply. We request safe passage to Earth for urgent diplomatic negotiations. 1 moment, please. The long pause that followed felt like an eternity. When the response came, it was from a different voice, calm, professional, and utterly final. This is Dr. Yunji Yang, speaking for the Human Republic. I am authorized to receive any messages you wish to send to our government. Dr. Yang, we come to apologize for our past actions and to request the restoration of normal relations between our peoples. I see. Please transmit your formal proposal. We will review it and provide a response. The council delegation transmitted their complete surrender. They offered to reverse every decision made in the past 2 years. They promised massive compensation for damages. They begged for forgiveness and a return to the previous relationship. Dr. Yang's response came 6 hours later. It was brief and devastating in its simplicity. The Galactic Council voted 847 to 1 that humanity's contributions were unwelcome in galactic affairs. We have honored that decision completely. We bear no malice toward your peoples, and we wish you success in your future endeavors. However, humanity has moved beyond the need for council approval or partnership. We have found our place in the galaxy, and it is not within your political structures. Should individual species wish to establish new relationships with humanity, we will consider such approaches on a case-by-case basis, but we will only engage as equals, with mutual respect and benefit. The era of human subservience to council authority has ended permanently. Back in council space, the final collapse accelerated. 3 more governments fell within a month of the failed diplomatic mission. The great trading stations shut down one by one as they lost the traffic needed to operate. On Rigel Prime, the last meeting of the Rigelian Commerce Guild took place in a conference room that had once hosted negotiations worth trillions of credits. Only 7 representatives attended. "The assets are gone," reported Financial Director Colvex. "The trading stations, the shipping contracts, even the orbital warehouses. We can't maintain them without human technology. What about selling them to independent operators? Who would buy them? The stations don't work without human maintenance. The shipping contracts are worthless without human vessels to fulfill them." The guild voted to dissolve itself rather than continue losing money on infrastructure they couldn't operate. Similar scenes played out across what remained of council space. The careful civilization built over centuries was dismantling itself, piece by piece. But in human space, the future was bright. President Young-Soo stood on the observation deck of New Seoul Station, watching human ships dock alongside vessels. From dozens of allied species, the station buzzed with activity, trade, and cooperation. "Any regrets?" asked his aide, Secretary General Yoon-ji Yang. Young-Soo considered the question seriously. "Regrets about leaving the council? No. We spent 50 years trying to find our place in their galaxy. It took us 2 years to build our own." Through the viewport, they could see construction ships working on the new orbital shipyards. Human technology, shared freely with species that treated humanity as partners rather than junior members, was advancing faster than ever before. "The council taught us something important," Young-Soo continued. "They taught us that we didn't need their permission to be great. We just needed to stop asking for it." In the distance, the lights of human colonies twinkled against the stars. Each one was a testament to what could be built when species worked together as equals rather than in artificial hierarchies. The galaxy had indeed learned the price of silence. Some species had paid with their civilizations. Others had paid with their pride. But humanity had paid nothing at all. They had simply walked away from a bad deal and built something better. The silence continued, deeper and more meaningful with each passing day. It spoke of dignity, of self-respect, and of the power that comes from knowing your own worth. In complete silence, the humans had walked away, and in that silence they had found their voice.